Let me explain it to everybody. You know that Navy that's parked out there that Cyrus saw, those big ships? They're worthless, absolutely worthless. You get one of those big ships near the shores of a nation that has adequate anti-shipping missiles, we can't defend. They'll overwhelm. We just saw the proof of that. All of the American military capacity is being withdrawn from the vicinity of Iran because the Iranians are pounding them to death. We ran out of the ability to defend ourselves. The Navy ships are defended by destroyers that have, SM-3, SM-6 anti-missile capabilities. But it's not as though they're attached straight to a factory. So as they use them, the factory says, here's some replacements. They have a magazine. That magazine has a finite quantity of missiles. And if you fire sufficient quantity of drones and missiles at the ship, they use up all their missiles. The enemy doesn't run out of ammunition. You run out of ammunition. When you run out of ammunition, you either have to flee or die. This is the reality. I'm just curious, how much more massive can Donald Trump get? I mean, we had a 39-day war, which was massive many times. I mean, we brought to bear the full capacity of America's conventional military power, and we lost. Donald Trump admits as much. We ran out of ammunition. The world ran out of oil. We negotiated a memorandum of understanding in bad faith and then broke it once we felt we had accumulated enough ammunition and the world's energy markets had stabilized. We launched another massive attack. I mean, how else do you describe quantities of American aircraft dropping munitions on Iran? And we failed. We lost. We ran out of ammunition and the world ran out of oil. And Donald Trump unilaterally called a halt. Somehow he believes that if you do the same thing over and over again, you'll get a different result. So now he's promising a massive attack. With what? With what? More bombers? How many more do we have? We've used them all. More weapons? We ran out of long-range strike weapons, so now these bombers would have to come in close, putting them at risk. And then what happens when the Iranians retaliate? Because we've acknowledged that the Iranians are actually getting stronger, not weaker, as the bombing goes on. They're building missiles. We're running out of missiles, and we've run out of the missiles needed to defend ourselves. So as we attack Iran, Iran will lay waste to American military infrastructure in the region, above and beyond what they have already done. And more importantly, because this massive attack that Trump was ordering was going to strike Iranian energy infrastructure, Iran would eradicate the totality of the Persian Gulf's oil production and gas production capability, bringing to a screaming halt the global economy and with it the American economy. And the last time I checked, James Carville reminded us in 1992, it's the economy, stupid. So if you're an American politician, understand this, and I think Donald Trump just saw the light, that the American people aren't going to vote for you because you carried out a massive military strike against Iran. They're going to vote against you, however, if gas prices keep going up, if cost of living keeps going up, if quality of life keeps going down. It's the economy, stupid. And finally, the dumbest man who ever occupied the White House is woken up to this reality. There was never going to be a massive attack. It was always brinksmanship. You can't be more massive at the end of your military capacity chain than you were at the beginning of your military capacity chain. We lost the war against Iran the first time around. We're not going to win it the third time around. Again, we have to come back to the fact that this conflict is tied up in domestic American politics. And what I'm speaking about, of course, is the midterm elections coming up in November. These are critical for the future of Donald Trump. And that's all Donald Trump cares about. He doesn't care about the future of America. He doesn't care about the future of American alliances regionally or globally. He only cares about Donald J. Trump. This is the ultimate narcissist. This is a man who has created a cult of personality. And the key thing about a cult of personality is the infallibility of the person around which the cult is built. Donald Trump can do no wrong. He can make no mistakes. He is perfect. And so what will happen, I believe, is, first of all, we've lost this war, and the Pentagon has all but admitted. What happened last night, I don't know if many people picked up on this, but it appears that the United States has abandoned Kuwait and Bahrain militarily. The reporting is that American military resources are being withdrawn. Kuwait, of course, was the anchor to American military commitment in Iraq and beyond. To lose Kuwait is to lose everything. Bahrain was the home of the Fifth Fleet. To give up on Bahrain means you're giving up on the Persian Gulf. So these decisions are already being made, just not being openly acknowledged. Pete Hegseth probably isn't long for his tenure as Secretary of War, because heads will fall. People will be brought to bear. Responsibility will be brought to bear, not on the president because he's infallible, but on those who have advised him. And Hegseth, of course, has been the number one cheerleader for this conflict. And I think what's going to happen is the president's going to be compelled. He has no other choice than to admit failure, but it wasn't his failure. He was lied to all the way down. And I think Israel will pay a price. This war will suddenly become Israel's war. And Hegseth will probably be compelled to resign. And there might be some heads rolling. Admiral Cooper and CENTCOM and other people who've been promulgating this conflict will likely be shown the door, because there has to be an accounting to the American people as to why we started and lost a war of choice that has only harmed the interests of the United States. So I think this is the direction we're going now. We're in a pause while, excuse me.
God bless you.
We've been doing some renovations in the house, and there's some sawdust in the air, and every once in a while a piece goes up the nose. What can you do? But welcome to real life, people. But I think this is the reality we're looking at, is that there will be accountability. They've lost this war. There's nothing we can do to recover from this error. We have lost our allies. NATO is not rallying to our support. The Gulf Arab nations are abandoning us as we speak. When Trump floated the concept of a massive retaliation, my understanding is that the Saudi Arabians said not just no, but hell no. That isn't going to happen, because they understand what's about to happen to them. Let's make this very clear. These Gulf Arab principalities and kingdoms, they have no real support amongst their population. These are people who rule by terror, by fear, and by bribery. They take oil wealth and they hand it out as large. These aren't good people. They don't have a linkage with their populations. These are perfumed princes who understand that the only reason they stay in power is because of their ability to pump oil and gas out of the ground. Iran is about to take that power away. And when they do that, heads will roll, literally, because these are people who've been taking the heads off of the people who oppose them, especially in Saudi Arabia. And I think, revenge is a dish best served cold, and the Saudi heads will be rolling if they continue down this path. I don't think they can reverse the path that they're on, but they can try and slow the acceleration to their ultimate demise. And allowing the United States to use their soil, or having had used their soil to link them to any future action against Iran that strikes Iran's energy infrastructure, would be literally a suicide pill. And so you see the Gulf region abandoning the United States. And this is the other reality that Donald Trump has to face. There is no support anywhere in the Gulf for a continuation of this conflict. The United States has no allies, and we have no capacity. And as a result, Donald Trump has no choice but to acknowledge. Well, I mean, the Ukrainian economy is collapsing because it's just ceased to function. It ceased to function because Russia's shutting it down. What you're describing is more linked, I think, to the stupidity of Donald Trump. When we speak of energy security, most people, we speak of course, the flow of oil and gas primarily. Of course, there's nuclear, there's wind, there's green, but the big driver, coal, but the big drivers are oil and gas, because, it costs a lot of money to get out of the ground, and there has to be massive infrastructure to distribute it, and people are overly reliant upon it. It's not just about the price of gasoline and diesel at the pump, though. It's about everything. Look around your desk. Go look around my desk. Everything we see is a byproduct of petroleum. I mean, oil is used to produce plastics. It's used to produce chemicals. It's gas produces chemicals that go into everything, even the food. I just had a wonderful breakfast cooked by my wife, included some green beans. Those green beans are grown in a farm that requires fertilizer. That fertilizer requires ammonia that comes from the gas production in Qatar, one of the largest producers of ammonia. The Russian and Ukrainian gas produce ammonia that's used to create fertilizer. Sulfur out of the oil is a key driver. You speak of chips. Again, I'm just a Marine. I'm not too smart about much. But I learned about helium. Now, I always thought helium was that thing that I sucked into my mouth to make my voice sound funny. But apparently, helium is actually a key component in chip manufacturing. And when you remove 25% of the global helium supply, and I think it's even more than that, Qatar actually leverages more than that. That means that none of these chips are getting produced. And when they do get produced, they're getting produced at extraordinarily high prices, which gets passed on to the consumer. And so global electronics, which are dependent upon helium to produce these chips that are used in the electronics, we're seeing a collapse because there's no alternative. It's not like, oh, well, we're out of helium, we'll use xenon or we'll use, nitrogen. Nope. You don't have helium, the production process shuts down. There's no replacement for it. These are the kind of things that the narrow-minded morons that run U.S. policy apparently didn't think of. Scott Bessent was singularly focused on the flow of oil to China and shutting down the flow of oil out of Russia. Again, he doesn't understand how China works. He doesn't understand how Russia works. He doesn't understand how Iran works. But he's singularly focused on oil as a producer of fuel for combustion engines. What he forgot is that oil is the driver of the global economy in terms of manufacturing, both in terms of the direct products, but also the byproducts of breaking down, crude. And when you lose 25% of the world's energy production capacity, it's a lot. It collapses the global economy. It doesn't shrink it. It collapses the global economy. And this is the direction that we're headed in right now. The prices you see, I mean, man, I don't think we talk about midterm elections being a big driver for the United States, but you know what else is a huge driver politically? Christmas. Nobody likes to talk about Christmas. But Christmas is when every American family with children has to put stuff under the tree that pleases their children. And because we've become a nation, I call it of lotus eaters. The lotus, of course, helps us forget the sins of our forefathers, the sins that we're committing today. We just consume the lotus, which is wrapping ourselves in a cocoon of consumer-driven comfort. And as long as we can fool ourselves, I mean, I got my phone. I can go, I'm lost in the narcotic of scrolling. Baby, the world is good. Everything's wonderful in the world. Beautiful women. Look at the vacations I'll never go on, but I can see right here. Music, it's all great. No, it's not. That's not reality. Reality is outdoors. Reality is interacting with people. But the Americans have fallen to this narcotic, this lotus eating of consumerism, which is fine as long as the government can continue to feed them the lotus leaves. The lotus is going to run out at Christmas. All that stuff ain't going to be under the shelf. And when it is under the shelf, it's going to be at prices nobody can afford. And that's when people wake up and say, oh my God, what has happened? What have we done? Who is to blame? And we go back to what I said at the beginning. It's the economy, stupid. And apparently the dumbest politicians ever populate Washington, D.C. have forgotten that point because they have built a cult of personality around a billionaire who couldn't give a rat's ass about any of the American people and what they're going through on a daily basis. Well, I mean, the Iranians have said for some time now that the president negotiates with himself. And this is sort of the sign of a schizophrenic man, a man who's not mentally well, a man who creates his own reality and populates it with imaginary events and people. The Iranians have straight up said, no, we